Hey guys.
Hey, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Good morning.
Hi. Is that
Morning, Rabbi.
Maxine and Stu over there?
It
Hi,
is.
Stu. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Lois.
Rabbi.
Hi.
We missed you, but we're trying
We
to
missed
get
you.
back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome to see you
We have
guys.
moved to Lincolnshire.
Really?
Yeah.
Single story living.
How about that?
Yeah.
Where in Lincolnshire?
Milwaukee, off of Milwaukee and half day.
Is that
Oh,
Seabrook? Is that
Yeah.
Seabrook?
No, it's Heritage Creek.
Ah,
It's right just directly north of the intersection of Milwaukee and Old Half Day. So it's a townhouse community.
So I've gone because I have a Weight Watchers meeting that I go to that's on Half Day Road and like Buffalo Grove, but I take Milwaukee up.
Yeah.
And I used to take Milwaukee to Half Day and then take
Then
Half
over.
Day down, but there's some kind of construction in the middle of it or
Yeah,
something.
Yes.
our place is, you really don't see it from the road. It's all the way in. There's a forest preserve in back of it. It's very nice.
Nice. Have you met some neighbors?
Yeah, a couple of them, yes. And our little grandson has acquired a little friend from next door.
Oh,
When Sandy
nice.
comes over.
And
I
then
didn't-
we met the parents of the third little boy.
Nice.
And,
That's a way to meet people. Through
Yeah,
the kid.
right. And I don't know if we told you, but Julie is expecting her second.
Oh no, you didn't. Mazel. Everything should be b'shat tova mitzlachas
Thank
in a
you.
good, successful time.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank
All right. It's really
And
good
then-
to see you guys. Good
You
to
too.
see you.
Thank
And Estella and Lois, it's also good to see you.
you.
Very great.
Very
Good.
thankful.
Good to see you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay. Bum 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 bum. Tida 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 bum. Tida 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 tida. No, why? Why did I do that? We don't know. Right. So last time we were talking about this mitzvah number 37. So it begins by talking about who the Kohanim are commanded to become impure for. The Rambam pointed out that it's not just that it's permitted for them to become impure, they must become impure. There are 6 relatives. There was the mother, the father, the brother, the sister, a child, and the spouse. Those are the 6 that he is supposed to, although I think it was Lois who pointed out that in the text.
Rabbi, I'm here. I'm sorry, I'm late.
Okay, all right. Let the record show that Sam is in fact present. That the wife is not actually listed in the list of 6, but she is counted in the 6. He himself mentions that. And he said, this was the sort of funny language of the Rambam. He said, if he does not want to become impure, we force him to become impure. And it happened with Yosef the priest, whose wife died on the eve of Pesach. He did not wish to become impure for her, that the sages pushed him and made him do it against his will. So then the Rambam does a little bit of a pivot. So he until this moment, he was talking about the mitzvah of the Kohanim to become impure for these 6 relatives. And then he does like a little bit of a pivot, and he says, and this is actually the commandment of mourning, meaning that any Israelite is obligated to mourn for his relatives. That is the 6 dead relations about which he is commanded. So these same 6, father, mother, brother, sister, child, and spouse, we are commanded to mourn for those same relatives. He, capital H, explained it with a priest for whom impurity is prohibited, that he must become impure regardless, so that the law of mourning not be uprooted. So what the Rambam is saying is that this would, there's not a separate command for a non-priest, because the priest, the Kohen, is the example. In other words, he's sort of an extreme example, because he's not allowed to become impure regularly for other people. So even he has to become impure for these people. So how much more so somebody who's not a priest? And has already been explained that the obligation of mourning is a positive commandment. He's counting that as part of this. So it would be positive commandment 37 it's including the positive commandment to mourn the dead, for everybody to mourn the dead. However, only on the first day, whereas the rest is rabbinic. And again, I mentioned to you that this is a matter of halachic discussion as to whether or not who holds that first day is biblical, and under what circumstances is biblical. Because I think, according to the Rambam, it only works out that the first day is biblical if it also happens to be the day the person died. So if it works out that the person was buried the same day they died, that day of mourning is biblical, as opposed to Tosfos. That's what I think is the who I think. All right, we're going to pause here now and just look at the subject. All right, now we're going to share screen.
That was a very funny meme.
I have not gotten tired of it. It's sitting.
Where did you find it?
It came across. I had seen it somewhere, like on Facebook or something. Somewhere it had come across. And then I automatically just fell in love with it and saved it. But I've seen it a couple times, come up a couple of times since then. But there's so much going on in that look of that little kid. Everything you need to know, shiva.com, my Jewish learning. I'm going to do BBM. This is my shortcut to something deep, if there is somebody who has a deep thing. Got anything? All right, let's see here. There are various stages of mourning. Stage 1 is called aninut, acute mourning from the time of death until after burial. The first 3 days, the Shiva. So I'm sorry, there's Aninu, which is from the time of death until after burial. Then there's the first 3 days. Then there's the Shiva, which is the first week, Shloshim, the first 30 days. And in the case of mourning over parents, an entire year. We shall discuss here the meaning of the various rights and prohibitions which together constitute the laws of mourning. The Mishnah and Gemara in Brachot set down the laws of Aninut. Someone whose deceased relatives lie before him unburied, eats in a different house. He may not recline to eat. He may not eat meat. He may not drink wine. He may not recite the grace after meals. He may not recite Zimun, the invitation to join the collective recitation of the grace after meals. Others need not recite a blessing on his behalf. He's not included in Zimun of others. He is exempt from reciting the Shema, from the Amida prayer, from donning tefillin, and from all the mitzvot stated in the Torah. That's called Aninut. And that's that very strange time where you're not making blessings before you eat. You're not doing it. It doesn't seem like any positive mitzvot, including the Shema and others. The halacha states that an onain, a person who's in acute mourning, is bound by the negative commandments, but exempt from observing the positive precepts. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, he's not only exempt from these precepts, he's forbidden to observe them, even if he so desires. What is this rationale for this exemption? The Rishonim disagree about the matter. Rishonim means medieval scholars. He is exempt from reciting the Shema because he's occupied with his thoughts regarding the burial. He's similar to a bridegroom who's exempt from such mitzvah because of his occupation with the mitzvah. He is exempt from reciting Shema. The Jerusalem Talmud explains the reason. Rebbe Bon said, "It is written that you may remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life, on days during which you involve yourself with living, but not on the days when you're involving yourself with the dead." According to Rashi, the Onain's exemption from mitzvot is based on the well-known principle that anyone engaged in a mitzvah, in this case the mitzvah burial, is exempt from observing other mitzvot. According to Tosfot, however, following the Jerusalem Talmud, we're dealing with a very astonishing halacha. The recitation of Shema, and presumably the rest of the positive precepts as well, were intended to be observed on days during which you involve yourself with the living, but not on days which you involve yourself with the dead. Judaism negates and opposes death to such an extent. Obviously, he doesn't mean negates death, really. It just means the absorption with the notion of death. That one may not engage in God's commandment at the same time that he's involved in death-related matters. That's his reading of Tosfot, which is sort of interesting. The Rishonim disagree whether or not the mourning law applies already before burial during the period of Aninut. Ramban, that's Nachmanides, rules that some of the mourning laws apply already during the time of Aninut, the acute mourning period before burial. Rambam maintains that during the period of Aninut, none of the laws of mourning are observed. That's our Maimonides. From when is a person obligated in mourning? From the time that the grave is sealed. But as long as the deceased has not been buried, his relative is not forbidden any of the things that are forbidden to the mourner. This is why David washed and anointed himself when the child died before he was buried. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik has suggested, Shirim L'Seher Abamori, that since an onain is exempt from all positive precepts, he's also exempt from the obligation to mourn. For that too is a positive precept. In other words,
Rabbi, the oneg is, I just missed that one part. What date is that from?
From death until burial, until the sealing of the grave, according to the Rambam. From death until the sealing of the grave, he's called an onain. And according to the Rambam, during that period of time, he does not, in other words, he doesn't have to sit on a low chair. He doesn't have to.
But the shloshim starts after that, then? Oh no.
Any of the
Shloshim?
laws, Shiva, Shloshim, or Avelus, none of the mourning laws apply during then. It would go
Okay.
from. It sounds like it. they don't apply. When do you start counting?
Yeah.
That might be a subject of discussion amongst the various commentaries, how you start counting. But from the Rambam,
Okay.
it seems like you would count from when the grave is sealed. That would be day one.
Okay.
So if grave is sealed during the day, let's say on April 1st, April 1st would be called day one. And once you got to nightfall, that would already begin day two.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So it's just sort of interesting. Rabbi Soloveitchik is suggesting the Rambam is consistent because the Rambam is saying, or at least it's simple. The Rambam is saying that during the period of Onan, you are exempt from positive commandments. And he holds mourning as a positive commandment. So you would be exempt from that too. In other words, in principle, the laws of mourning pertain from the moment of death, even before the deceased has been brought to burial. Even the Rambam would agree, in principle, it should be like that. An Onan, however, is exempt from all mitzvot. Therefore, just as he's exempt from the mitzvah of reciting Shema, so too he's exempt from the mitzvah of mourning. That's sort of cute. That
Rabbi?
would be about mourning. Yeah.
Quick question. Would you say that the grave is sealed is accomplished after the dirt is thrown in, or does it have to be fully buried?
So it seems like it would be when you cover the ark, the casket. There's a point where you've covered the casket where that's what they mean by the grave is sealed, technically. So there's like a rounded kind of covering of the casket. At that point, the grave is sealed. I'm pretty
Okay,
sure
so that's when the prohibition starts, right?
Right. That's when the person starts to be a mourner. So as they're leaving, that's when people are giving them the message of comfort. Often people line up in two rows and the mourners walk between them, and you give the comfort to the mourners at that point. That's because they're really starting to be mourners at that moment.
Yeah.
Here, it cannot be argued that the exemption from the mitzvah of mourning is based on the principle that anyone already engaged in mitzvah is exempt from the observing of other mitzvot. For how does the mourner's involvement in the mitzvah of burial stand in his way from refraining from washing? But it's also difficult to understand how the principle of, in other words, once you start mourning, you're not supposed to take a shower, let's say. But when you're an Onan, you can take a shower. Why are you allowed to take a shower? According to the Rambam. According to the Rambam, when you're an Onan, you could take a shower. You could sit on regular chairs. You could, because the laws of mourning don't apply to you yet. The truth is, even in mourning, you could take a shower if you're feeling dirty. But let's say you're not feeling dirty. You're not supposed to take a shower. So but you could do that if you're an Onan. But why? So the Rambam's. So if you say that he's not, it's just a general thing. He's not obliged to do positive commandments. So fine, he's not obliged to do the positive commandments of mourning. But if this is because once I'm engaged in a positive commandment, I don't have to do another positive commandment because we have that principle, osek b'mitzvah, poter min mitzvah. So let's say I'm engaged in the burial. They're not going to burden me with other mitzvot right now because they want me to do a good job of being engaged in the burial. But if that's the reasoning, what do they care if you wash? But it's also, in other words, the small thing. What do they care if I say a blessing? But it is also difficult to understand how the principle of on the days during which you involve yourself with the living pertains to the mitzvah of mourning. Surely the mitzvah of mourning is wholly connected to death. Why then should this mitzvah not apply during the period of aninut? So he's working with two explanations for why you're not involved with positive commandments. One is that I'm involved in one mitzvah, therefore I'm exempt from other mitzvahs. The other one was when you're dealing with the dead, you don't do the mitzvah of the living. Why should that affect Shiva? Shiva is also dealing with the dead. Why should it set aside the mitzvah of Shiva? We must therefore conclude that the mitzvah of mourning puts death into a spiritual and emotional framework, providing it with meaning and significance. Judaism, however, wishes that our initial reaction to death be total confusion and utter helplessness. This is true both from a cognitive as well as an emotional perspective. From a conceptual philosophical perspective, the rejection of death, which we shall discuss below, finds its fullest expression in the laws of Aninut. Death is an abnormal phenomenon. This is how we're asked to treat it. It isn't necessarily the way everybody treats it, but this is how we're asking to treat it. That death is an abnormal phenomena, and the immediate reaction to it must involve a total suspension of normal activities. On the emotional and interpersonal level, the laws of mourning help us assimilate death within a framework of reference that is familiar to us. During Aninut, halacha does not want us to digest death, which would allow us to run away from a direct confrontation with it. During the first stage of mourning, we must confront death face to face and in total shock without anything to ease the encounter, is what he is suggesting. The Shulchan Aruch summarizes the principal mourning rites of Shiva, the first 7 days, and Shloshim, the first 30 days. There are things forbidden to a mourner: working, washing, anointing, wearing shoes, and marital relations. He or she is forbidden to read the Torah, to greet people, to do laundry. He or she is obligated to cover his head and overturn his bed all 7 days. We don't do that bed overturning anymore. Not clear why. This person may not don tefillin on the first day. He's forbidden to do fine laundry, cut his hair, participate in joyous celebrations, and mend his rent garment for 30 days. The Gemara offers.
Can you be Rabbi? Can you be a count as one of the 10 in the minyan?
Yes. I don't know about the first day. I don't know what he'll say about that first day, because for some reason he's saying you can't put on tefillin the first day. I'm not sure what he means by the first day. He might mean he might be talking about on the first day after the person died, with the assumption that you buried him that first day. So that day he wouldn't be wearing tefillin. So if he's talking about that, then you wouldn't be I'm almost positive you could not count as a minyan, part of a minyan. All practical halachic questions must be asked to Rabbi Daniel Fox, but I'm almost positive that he doesn't count towards the minyan if he's an onain.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense that he would count towards the minyan if he's an onain, which is before the actual burial.
Right.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
I can recall that if you are davening leading services,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to do that if you're an onain or even in the morning period. Is that correct?
I don't know. I think you are allowed to lead it in Shiva once you're not an onain anymore. I'm pretty sure you are allowed to.
As a matter of fact, isn't that what happened? I'll never forget when we used to go to Northbrook, and I was in Chicago. The person who would daven would be someone who's saying Shiva.
Right. Now, that person's for sure doing it after Shiva. The question is, are they doing it during Shiva?
Oh.
Right. I'm not sure if they're doing it in Shul during Shiva. Then I'm not sure. All practical halachic questions must be asked to Rabbi Daniel Fox. The Gemara offers a more generalized summary of the mourning laws. Weep not for the dead, neither bemoan him, Jeremiah. Weep not excessively for the dead, neither bemoan him more than in measure. How so? 3 days for crying, 7 days for eulogy, and 30 for fine laundry and hair cutting. From then on, the Holy One, blessed be, says, be not more compassionate than I am. Now that's talking about everybody who's not your parents. for your parents, you have to do it longer. On the one hand, the laws of mourning involve affliction and abstention from all forms of rejoicing. On the other hand, they impose clear limits upon the mourner's grief and sorrow. Mourning has enormous psychological value. On the one hand, the mourning laws compel the mourner to give expression to his suffering and even provide him with a framework within which to do so. On the other hand, halacha returns him in stages to the world of the living. The psychological profundity of the laws of mourning explains why many secular Jews meticulously observe them and express great interest in fully understanding them, as reported to me by the head of the Chevra Kadisha in Tel Aviv. So even we're not so interested in other areas of Jewish practice, but the laws of mourning are very important even to people that are not religious. These two aspects constitute the conceptual message of the mourning rite: rejection of death and confirmation of this world. There are those who have rejected the religious significance of this world. A radical example of this approach, which gives preference to the world to come over this world and venerates death as an opportunity for the elevation of man's souls, may be found in the frightening oration of Elazar ben Yair before the defenders of Masada. From early on, from the day that we first acquired understanding the laws of our Torah, God's Torah have taught us that our forefathers have shown us with their deeds and the greatness of their souls that the catastrophe facing man is not death, but life. For death sets our souls free and sends them off to return to the dwelling place of purity, which is their home, so that they should grieve no more. Why then should we fear death? Surely it is folly of our hearts to pursue freedom and life in this world while our eyes look down upon eternal freedom in the world to come. We must set an example for others and accept death with love, quoted by Josephus Flavius, The Jewish Wars. It is difficult to extrapolate from here a well thought out worldview. We're dealing with an extreme situation. Elazar ben Yair was trying to persuade his men to commit suicide. It's only natural that he should emphasize the positive side of death and negative side of life in this world. But his very words, in and of themselves, cause us to shudder, his approach being highly exceptional in Jewish history. The laws of mourning, among other things, teach us otherwise. Thus, for example, writes Radbaz in response to a question whether death should be viewed as good or bad. Question: regarding one of the leading authorities of the generation who lost a son but did not shed a single tear over him, is this a good trait or not? Answer: this is an evil trait, demonstrating hardness of the heart and wickedness of the soul. This is a trait of cruelty, the way of the philosophers who claim this world is merely an illusion. They are diminished by their vanity. Their remembrance is like ashes. An abomination is he that chooses them. Therefore, allow not their transgression and their words to seduce you, for they are all based on this assumption. We, however, who have received the Torah, should believe and know that this world is a very venerable thing to those who use it properly and act appropriately. It is there that man will attain life in the world to come and eternity for the soul, for it is called the world of deeds. Rather, one should lament and mourn and grieve over one's actions, as it is written, why then does a living man complain, a man for the punishment of his sins? Eicha 3:39. One who cries and mourns and sheds tears over the deaths of relatives, and all the more so over a fitting person, this is a trait of the pious, the prophets, and men of deeds. It demonstrates the purity of his soul and the submission of his heart to his maker. He should lament his sins and grieve over his transgressions, which are the cause. In other words, if like Elisha who calls out, Avi, Rechav, Sus, Parashav, Elisha who calls out in mourning for the loss of his teacher, Eliyahu. So he should be, it is appropriate for him to be sad that Eliyahu is leaving and to believe that it's because of his sins that Eliyahu is leaving. In other words, use it as motivation to be better. If I had been better, he wouldn't be leaving. In the case of Eliyahu, it's true, because Eliyahu is leaving because he can't stand being around because nobody's listening to him. And nobody's listening to God, basically. And so that's why he doesn't want to be around anymore. So it's true in a sense that that he could say, if I had been a better person, if the people around me had been better people, then Eliyahu wouldn't have left. So that's the appropriate way of thinking of it. But to be sad that he left, of course you're supposed to be sad that he left. And if somebody says, why should I be sad that he left? He's in a better world. This world is not worth crying over. This world's nothing. It's saying this is not a proper attitude. The proper attitude is to be sad when somebody dies. But one who cries and mourns and shed tears over the death of relatives, and all the more so over a fitting person, this is a trait of the pious, the prophets and men of deeds. It demonstrates the purity of soul and the submission of his heart to his maker. He should lament his sins and grieve over his transgressions, which are the cause. It is not for naught that our rabbis of blessed memory said 3 days for crying, 7 for eulogy, and 30 for fine laundry and hair cutting. If this were improper, they would have established. If this were improper, they would have not established 3 days for it. And similarly, it is written about the patriarch Avram to eulogize Sarah and to weep over her. And similarly regarding Yaakov and regarding King David and many others like them too. Too many to count.
Rabbi, someone
Yeah.
loses it. I may be missing something here, but if somebody loses a child, there
Yeah.
is no way. There is no way that you're going to just mourn or not cry over this child for more than 3 to 7 days. There's no way.
Apparently, it started off by saying, regarding one of the leading authorities of the generation who lost a son but did not shed a single tear over him.
Oh my God.
Is this a good trait or not?
It's not. It's abnormal.
I believe he did not hold back, because this man called him one of the leading authorities of the generation. And the answer, he said, this is an evil trait demonstrating hardness of heart, wickedness of the soul. This is a trait of cruelty, the way of the philosophers who claim this world is mere illusion. They are diminished by their vanity. Their remembrance is like ashes. An abomination is he that chooses them. So I think you're in good company with the Radbaz there. He's not happy with that attitude.
But the Rambam saying you should be
Rod-
tough it up?
No, nobody. No,
No, I must have missed it then.
no.
Yeah.
This is a responsa. The Radbaz was asked a question where
Yeah.
somebody said there is somebody who is considered a leading authority of the generation. And
I get it.
he held like that. And the Radbaz is saying that person is evil. It's not good, it's evil. Nobody that we know and Hallow is espousing that position. This guy in his question was just saying that somebody who they considered a leading person, but the
Okay.
Radbaz,
Sorry.
okay, no
Rabbi,
problem.
Rabbi,
Yeah, yeah.
is the reference to David, is it talking about Absalom, his son?
It might be also he had a son from Bathsheba who died. And so it might also be referring to that incident over there, although it's a bit of a strange incident. So it talks about it over there that while his son was dying, he was in mourning. Once his son died, though, he got up and finished. And they asked him, why are you doing it? You're doing it backwards. You should have mourned now. And he said, there's nothing more I can do for him. I don't know. That's a weird, I don't know if he's referring to that one. If he is, it's not an absolute proof of what he was trying to say. One of the clearest proofs of Judaism's attitude to life in this world is the well-known law that the obligation to save a human life supersedes all the commandments of the Torah, with the exception of idolatry, murder, and forbidden sexual relations. The Torah statutes were never intended to deprive a person of life in this world. He shall live in them, it says in Vayikra, and not die in them. Judaism attaches such a high value to human life that it allows the Shabbos to be desecrated even for transient life. That is, in order to save the life of a person who might even die shortly. The Mishnah Brura proves that this applies even to a person on their deathbed. We've been arguing that Judaism emphasizes life in this world and rejects death as a negative development. Many have claimed that the famous dictum of the Tana Rabbi Yaakov teaches us otherwise. Rabbi Yaakov says this world is like a vestibule before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the vestibule so they'll be ready to enter the banquet hall. At first glance, Rabbi Yaakov seems to be saying that the world to come is preferable to this world, which is nothing but a vestibule. But in order to properly understand what Rabbi Yaakov is saying, we must first consider what he says in the very next Mishnah. He would say, 1 hour of repentance and good deeds in this world was worth more than the whole life in the world to come. 1 hour of spiritual bliss in the world to come is worth more than a whole life of this world. Rabbi Yaakov asserts here that this world is superior to the world to come because it is the world in which God is served. Only in this world can man observe the commandments and fill the demands of his creator. The world to come is preferable in a different respect. It is the world of recompense. Thus, the world is considered a vestibule to the world to come only when we look at the two from a narrow, egotistical perspective. It is the world to come that the believer will receive his true reward for the mitzvahs he performed in this world. Essentially, however, this world is superior, for it is here and only here that God may be served and his mitzvahs may be fulfilled. I shall not die, but shall live, proclaims the psalmist, and declare the works of the Lord. In what way is our world superior to the world of the dead? Why does the psalmist yearn for life in this world? For in death there is no remembrance of you, Sheol, who will give you thanks. The dead cannot praise the Lord, nor can those who go down in silence. It must be emphasized that Judaism sides with life in this world, not only because this is the place that mitzvot can be fulfilled. This world is more than just a possible framework for the fulfillment of the commandments. The truth is quite the opposite. It is because God desired life in this world that he determined that the mitzvot can only be fulfilled here. Life in this world is pleasing to God. He created the world in order that it should exist in its material mode. And he created us in order that we should live real lives in this world. This is what Rambam writes in his introduction to Torah to Adam. Part of serving God is to engage in worldly affairs, in the perpetuation of the species, for God desires that his creation of us remain forever. God wants us to exist in this world, and therefore he created our world. Rambam also emphasizes our obligation to develop and perpetuate the world in order to complete the Creator's work. As we've stated above, halacha views life in this world as a positive and favorable, even apart from the fact that it is only in this world the mitzvahs can be fulfilled. We shall cite a number of proofs to this assertion. Dealing as we are with the laws of mourning, it seems appropriate to bring a proof from what the Gemara says regarding the laws of rending one's garment. This is how the Gemara explains the obligation to rend one's garment over the day. Okay, so we will pause here. I look forward to continuing our studies of this mitzvah 37, which includes the mitzvah to mourn, tomorrow.
Yeah, Rabbi, thank you.
See you all, guys.
Rabbi,
Yes, Sam?
did you get my latest package?
No.
Not
When
yet?
did you send it? When did you send it?
Sharon, what day did we send it? Thursday or Friday?
I didn't get it. I might get it today. I might be getting.
You'll let me know when you get it, okay?
I
Just
will.
wanna make sure
Will it
it's
include
your
that
favorite.
Lincoln Highway?
Huh?
Is that including Lincoln Highway?
Yeah, that's the one that's
All right. Awesome.
for you.
Looking forward to it.
All right,
All right, my
Thanks.
friend. Be well. All
bye-bye,
right.
bye-bye.
Rabbi, how is
Yeah.
it? I'm sorry. How is it
No.
for sure known? I mean, I know that most of the mitzvahs cannot be served, but how do we know that we're not up there? Our souls have a harp. We're singing Hallel. We're still serving Hashem in the world to come.
We don't know. He's emphasized. I mean, there is some creativity here in how he's doing, especially that last flip where he said that it's not. He did almost like one of those Socrates kind of flips. He's saying it's not that this world's important. That line where he said it's not that this world's important just because we do mitzvahs. Hashem chooses to give us the mitzvahs here because this world is important. I was like Socrates switch there. So I think I'm going to say that this sort of like the opposite scenario of Elazar on top of Masada. If you're trying to preach to the person who's here about the value of life here, this is what it sounds like. They're both have their reasons for preaching the way they're preaching. But I think that here his emphasis, because he doesn't know for sure that there's no service of God in the next world. He's working with stuff that is well studied and well discussed. I mean, but I think his emphasis is a little bit exaggerated, because he can't know. And also you will see places that speculate that service, certainly the Rambam doesn't agree with him. Because the Rambam says the highest form of existence is a soul without a body. You can't have the highest level of existence together with the body. So it doesn't seem like the Rambam would agree with him. It could be the Ramban and others who argue that even the highest existence in the Ravid, those who disagree with the Rambam, who hold that the highest level of existence is the soul together with the body, it could be his explanation would work for them. And that's why Trias Amesim is so important, because Trias Amesim is going to last forever. So I guess according to them, you could say it, but you can't say it according to the Rambam, what he's saying, but sort of creative and interesting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I, if you have just 1 second, I just
Sure.
want to tell you, I want to ask if this has been said before. I always wondered why when we say the Kiddush at Shabbos, we say Berei Priya Gofen in the middle of it. Why are we doing it then? And I had this insight that because the first part of what we say has to do with the creation, including creation of grapes and everything, but the second part is the holy part for the Jewish people. And that's why we say Mekadesh HaShabbos at the end. And
so you're saying that Berei Priya Gofen that they should be separated. You're saying that they should sort of be distinguished.
Well, I wondered why they were. Yeah, I wonder why it's in the middle.
But then the question is, why do they? I see that there are two separate parts. I like that. And but the question is, why would you need to separate them? Why wouldn't you put them together?
Showing the two differences. The first part
Because
being
you want
creation, which is universal. It's universal, and then the second part being specific to the Jewish people. Choosing the Jewish people and making Shabbos holy.
Okay, now universal as opposed to particular. So, because also you have the two tablets. You have the first set and the second set. On the first set, it mentions Shabbos, the connection to creation. On the second set, it mentions the connection to Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Right.
So would you say your universal and particular thing about those as well?
I hadn't thought. I don't know. Let me think about it.
All right.
Yeah.
What's
I
the
like
question?
this.
What's the question?
So Lois,
Sam, I was
Sorry
just
to
wondering
mooch in
why
on your thing, but I didn't hang up yet. So I'm sorry to mooch in on you.
no, that's fine. This is
please.
for
No,
everybody.
it's fine.
And it's being recorded, so you can even listen to it after. But
So what was Lois's question again?
so Lois was
why
asking
we say Berei Pi HaGofen in the middle when we do Kiddush instead of at the end, because we're just about to drink. I always wondered that. So I just had this idea when we were doing Kiddush that the first part of Kiddush has to do with creation and a universal idea of God creating the universe. The second, and so grapes, which Berei Pri HaGofen, he created everything we use. The second part is specific to the Jewish people and specific to the way we do Shabbos. So we say Mekadesh HaShabbos at the end.
the only another thing I would add to this, because this is an interesting beginning of exploration. Another thing I would add, though, for your consideration, is that the reason we're not saying Kiddush in order to well, I guess we could think about it. You're not saying Kiddush in order to say the blessing on the wine. You're saying the blessing on the wine as a way of saying Kiddush. You know what I mean? In other words,
Yeah.
Kiddush is sort of a toast to creation, let's say. In your explanation, or maybe it's just a matter of wording it. In yours, the creation is a way of setting up the blessing on the grapes, on the wine, right? The universal is a kind of setup, a kind of a kind of context for the blessing on the wine.
Right. Well, the
Right.
drinking. Well, yeah, the blessing on the wine.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Usually thought of the other way around, that the reason you have the wine is a way of creating context for the Kiddush, as opposed to Kiddush being context for the wine. But we should not be limited to those things. We should. All right.
Wait.
I like, as always, I like your.
Okay.
I'm
Wait,
sorry.
David has to disagree with me. What
I
is
know.
it?
Just think about this. The entire, if you take Lois's explanation, it's completely mirrored in Havdalah. The two final blessings are Sami and Aish. Those are the things that have to do with creation. And the first part we're talking about, Kel Yeshua Si, Hashem, Savos Yimanu, all of those things which are specific to the Jewish people.
And then you go back.
But we don't drink the wine. Something to think about.
Wait, that one, wait, you're saying it's the opposite in
Yeah,
Havdalah?
if you take Lois's thing about the first part being about creation, and then the other one being about the Jewish people, in Havdalah, the first paragraph has to do with the connection of God and the Jewish people, and the last two have to do with things that seem to come from nature and creation, fire and plants.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I like
Okay,
this.
thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome.
Tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.